In Raleigh, it's Nick Petro with your Tropical Depression 9 update. And yes, it's been changed, or I guess upgraded from a potential tropical cyclone to an actual tropical depression. So what does that mean? That means, there's certainly it's starting to evolve and perhaps become better defined, and circulation closing off, and basically we're on our way to perhaps seeing a tropical storm, maybe eventually a hurricane developing. So there's been some notable changes since yesterday. A couple things before we start talking about Depression 9. Let's talk about today. Let's not forget about today's rain. The flash flooding threat for today has decreased, with the greatest risk now north and northeast of Rocky Mount. So that is a very, very welcome news. I know there was a lot of outdoor activities going on this weekend, so that is wonderful news. Remember, forecasts were much more dire and much more washout oriented for today, but I think now we'll find, some places will get some rain. There's no doubt about that. But the worst of it should be north and east of Rocky Mount. Okay, and then Tropical Depression 9, confidence is increasing that it may stay south of central North Carolina, but still a lot of considerable uncertainty in its track. I mean, we've seen big shifts in the last 24 hours. I don't want to lull people into a sense of everything's okay and sense of security, and then only to see another shift back to the west. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I just don't want to put it to bed yet, so to speak. There's still going to be a lot of impacts. So first, let's take a look at the current conditions. I always like to start with the big picture, right? Here's the big picture. Well, actually, before we do that, let me jump over to here and let me just show you. This is fresh from the National Hurricane Center. Okay, it's now, instead of a potential tropical cyclone, it's Tropical Depression 9. Maximum state winds 35 miles per hour, movement to the northwest at 6 miles per hour. But look at this curve to the right, and now again, listen, let me reemphasize a million times. I never want people just to follow the center right down the middle, right? You got to look at the entire picture, because this is the potential where the center could go. Okay, this just addresses where the center of the storm goes. There can still be lots of impacts beyond the cone. Okay, so there can still be impacts. So let me state this another way. If you're looking at this and saying, well, we're out of the cone, we're okay, that is definitely not necessarily the case. Once again, the cone shows one thing, and that is where the center of the storm is most likely to go. Just the center. And remember, impacts occur far away from the center. So that said, the track of the center has, forecast has taken a turn to the east, and that's what some models were showing yesterday. More models were shown it the day before, but yesterday there was more of a shift towards towards coming ashore in South Carolina. Again, that could still happen, but I wanted to point that out first. Big picture, back to the big picture. So what do we got going on here? We've got a couple things I'm really keeping an eye on. Alberto, right? That's a major hurricane right now. And when Alberto gets up into this neck, up, around Bermuda, there's going to be a tremendous amount of swell and wave energy headed back to the west. It's going to send a tremendous amount of wave energy back to North Carolina coast. So even if Tropical Depression 9 wasn't there, there would still be impacts along the North Carolina coast felt from Alberto. Okay, what are those impacts? We're talking rough surf, okay, deadly rip currents, maybe some ocean overwash, particularly in the places that were weakened during Aaron. When would that occur? That would probably occur more like Tuesday into Wednesday and beyond. Okay, so let me just put that out there right now, that regardless of whatever happens to this, regardless of that, okay, we are going to see some wave energy directed back to the North Carolina coast from Alberto, and that will result in impacts along the Outer Banks, okay? So that's, again, Tuesday, Wednesday on. All right, so what do we got going on here? We've got a big upper low, okay, that's circulating kind of like this, right? We've got a big area of rain associated, not necessarily with this tropical system, but associated with this big upper low and its associated front. Okay, there's a frontal system in here, and there's all that rain associated with it. So that's what's driving the current weather that we're having today. All this weather you see right here is not tropical in nature. It's thanks to this big low and the winds circulating around it, okay? Now, if that was the only player in town, then typically it's these lows, these troughs, that tend to steer, is a steering mechanism for tropical cyclones. And right off the bat, you might say, well, there's a big trough here. Is that going to pull in Tropical Depression 9 towards the coast? And certainly it's going to cause it to move toward the southeast coast, okay, towards the Carolina coast. That is indeed true. But there's another player in our weather that is on the other side of the country, and that's this big spinning thing you see right here. See this upper low right here? And then right off the screen, there's a piece of jet energy that's basically going to dive to the southwest and basically kick this whole system eastward, okay? So this, in fact, what I just drew here on the screen, out over the southwest US and even still out in the eastern Pacific, that energy, this piece of energy right here, this big upper low, all of that is what's going to move east and potentially kick this big upper low in the storm eastward, okay? Now, why were the models struggling with this all along? Well, because this system here and this at jet energy was way out in the Pacific, you know, yesterday and the day before and the day before that. And you know, there's just not as many observations out in the Pacific to measure what's currently happening. So you know, essentially the models were struggling with what's going on with these two systems and really weren't sure how strong they were, how to handle them. Well, now that this low has come ashore and this jet energy is getting closer, the models are doing a little bit better job. And now some of the models show, again, this whole feature moving east, which might just kind of kick Tropical Depression 9 eastward. Now the question is, how fast does that happen? If this system here slows and this trough lingers, well then, you know, that would be more conducive for Tropical Depression 9 to continue to move towards the Carolina coast. Okay, so this is not a done deal yet. This eastward turn is not a done deal. But if this upper disturbance and this low, you know, is, say, for example, the GFS shows continues its eastward track and maintains a vigorous eastward track, that should help kick or at least keep whatever becomes of Tropical Depression 9 off the coast, okay? But again, this is a very complex system, right? So again, if this slows down, you know, there's a lot of things that could change between now and then, but I wanted to show you why this has been such a complex storm system, why it's been difficult to forecast and model, because things happening on the other side of the world can impact, you know, what's happening closer to home here, okay? But I could tell you this for sure. Alberto is going to send wave energy back towards the Carolina coast. Again, rough surf, dangerous rip currents, maybe some maybe some overwash. Not sure, you know, to the degree to which it'll be bad, but there'll be probably some overwash. Again, around midweek, maybe as early as Tuesday. And then I'm still thinking that once we finally get Tropical Depression 9 strengthened, maybe into a tropical storm or hurricane, there's still going to be some rain that gets pushed up our area, okay? So let me just use some modeling to kind of convey that. Okay, so this is the current scenario in the GFS model, which shows the light rain we're experiencing right now. This rain we're experiencing right now has nothing to do with anything tropical and everything to do with this big upper low over the eastern US, okay? So that will continue on. By Sunday, it looks like most of the rain is going to be confined mainly to the coast, okay? Coastal Carolina sections, maybe some in the mountains, but that's very light rain, okay? And then as we get to Monday, midday Monday, now we can see what's more than likely the ice storm, what was tropical, or what is currently Tropical Depression 9, developed. And you see this rain here over the coastal sections. And perhaps even into central North Carolina. There's a lot of tropical moisture that's going to be pumped up into the Carolinas, even when the storm is still east of Florida. So again, a lot of moisture headed our way. And when that moisture interacts with the pre-existing front or that upper trough that I talked about, all that moisture coming up will give us a little bit of rain out ahead of it. So all this rain is thanks to the tropical moisture feeding up and interacting with the mechanisms that are giving us today's rain. Okay, the mechanisms that are giving us today's rain aren't going anywhere fast. Okay, so then that's midday Monday. Here is Tuesday morning. Again, all of this rain you see over us is thanks to, again, tropical moisture being fed up and interacting with the pre-existing weather systems that are over us right now as we speak. Okay, they'll still be hanging around on Monday into early Tuesday, and then it's late day Tuesday where we start to see maybe that eastward shift. That's here's midday Wednesday, and then by Thursday morning, at least weather-wise, we're in the clear. There'll still be a lot of impacts along the coast from that swell energy from Alberto that I talked about. Okay, so don't lose sight of that. Okay, so regardless of whether, regardless of that track, we're still going to get a decent amount of rain early next week, first half of next week. Okay, that's the GFS model. The European model shows something reasonably similar. Again, here's today's rain right now. Here is tomorrow, which again, most of the rain pinned to the coast. If there is anything inland, it's fairly light and spotty. Here is Monday morning, just Monday midday, just like the GFS. The Europeans also shown the center of the storm east of Florida. And again, all this rain that I spoke of earlier is all due to tropical moisture being pumped up toward us and interacting with pre-existing mechanisms to create that rain. Okay, so the European, just like the GFS, shows off and on rain on Monday. Here's Tuesday morning, and you could see, the progression of the storm is slowing down. But again, despite that, there's still a large amount of rain, a large swath of rain that we'll have to watch out for. Okay, so regardless of the track, it looks like we're going to get some occasional decent rains out of this early next week. Again, that's Tuesday morning. That's Tuesday evening. And look at those, again, the final, where this stops before it starts moving east, that's gonna make a big deal of wind potential along the coast. Maybe some of the bands starting to scrape across the coast. So again, don't be lulled by that. You see what I mean? Don't say, oh, we're good, we're not going to get anything, that we're out of the cone. No. We may not be exactly in the cone right now, but we are definitely in the impact zone, okay, with the rain. All right. And then what does the European do? It kind of just meanders it out, but it's slowly, eventually it catches on to that energy that I talked about out in the western US. It eventually gets feels that and starts moving to the east. Okay. Yeah, it meanders, and we'll have to keep a close eye on that. But again, this isn't a done deal, right? Because why is it making the turn? It's making the turn because of this system that's just now emerging on the southwest portion of the U.S. And if the models aren't handling this right, they ultimately may not handle the track of Tropical Depression 9. So we're still not, it's still not a done deal. Okay, but Compared to yesterday, I feel a lot better about the western portion of North Carolina. Yesterday, I was really concerned about the western portion of North Carolina getting, heavy rain. But maybe fingers crossed, maybe this scenario will come to pass, and that won't be as big a deal as maybe what we thought yesterday. Okay, but again, don't let your guard down. All right, so how much rain? This is the forecast for today. So, the shift east of I-95 is pretty apparent in this graphic. Here's tomorrow's rain, the heaviest rain along the immediate coast. Again, this has nothing to do with the tropical system and everything to do with the existing weather that's given us, the system that's given us the weather today. Now we're starting to see, and this is for Monday, now we're starting to see potential for multiple inches of rain, basically across the eastern half of North Carolina. Again, even if the center of the storm stays way far away, it's still going to pump up a lot of tropical moisture that will interact with the existing weather systems. Okay, here is Tuesday, again, a focus mainly across the central and southern portions of North Carolina, southeast portions. And then finally, the system begins to relax and move east and lesser rain. When we add up 7 days worth of rainfall, look at that. We're talking, a half a foot of rain in some spots, particularly south and east of Raleigh. That's a lot of rain. So we're not out of the woods. Okay. There's still 1.5 inches, 2 inches of rain forecast for Western North Carolina. So exactly, not Western North Carolina isn't exactly out of the woods either, but it's looking less likely that the western part of North Carolina will see those heavier amounts. Okay. So what does this mean? This means potential for, flash flooding. This will probably elevate the rivers across the eastern half of North Carolina. Not sure yet, it's too soon to say how high, but certainly, 6 or more inches of rain, certainly gonna have some impacts on the rivers. And flash flooding, as I mentioned. Monday, late Monday, Tuesday, particularly Tuesday. And then don't forget about those coastal impacts that regardless of where Tropical Depression 9 goes, those impacts on the Outer Banks will be felt thanks to Alberto Tuesday, Wednesday, and perhaps even beyond. Okay. All right, so that's the way we see things shaping up. Let's kind of button it all back up with these slides, and then we'll get to some questions here. This is the flash flood outlook for today, showing that the greatest risk for flash flooding is east of I-95, particularly north and east of Rocky Mount. I've already showed that. This is the flash flood risk for Monday and Tuesday, again, kind of in line with what I showed you where that heavier rain would be. So again, anywhere in the green, there's a marginal risk for flash flooding. Yellow just basically means the risk is higher for flash flooding in the yellow area and more widespread. Okay, so that's Monday and Tuesday flash flood potential. And those are really the key takeaways. Again, how much wind we get will be dependent on how close the system gets to the coast, but we're definitely in for some rain. There's no doubt about that. All right, so confidence is increased that we're going to see some rain, but the exact track there's a considerable amount of uncertainty. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. Yeah, I think I pretty much covered it all right there. So this will be our only live webinar for today. I know yesterday and the day before we did one at 5 and 5:30, but we're still several days away from the main impact. So we're just going to wait and maybe do one tomorrow morning. We'll see. I'm not sure what time, but again, this is our only one live webinar and recording for today. Let's see, we'll send out these slides. We'll update the slides later today. We'll definitely update the PowerPoint slide or the presentation slides and get those uploaded to our website, and we'll send those out via our email lists. Same thing, we'll have another update tomorrow morning. And then sometime tomorrow, we'll probably do another live webinar. Okay, so stay tuned to your emails for the schedules for that. So again, a lot of moving parts here. Keeping an eye on what's going on out here in this energy, because that'll ultimately impact the track of this. Alberto is still going to bring, impacts to the immediate coastal areas and outer banks by way of rough surf, dangerous rip currents, maybe some overwash, Tuesday, Wednesday on, and then just, potential for heavy rain, not only associated with, Tropical Depression 9 once it comes up, but just even if it stays to our south, it'll still be pumping up plenty of moisture to interact with this system that's already there, okay? So that's a quick summary. All right, that wraps up what I have for my presentation this morning.